Day 7 of the war between Israel and Hamas. Nearly 3,000 killed on both sides.
Tonight, punishing airstrikes, a looming ground attack, and the security concerns here at home. Good evening. We'll have the latest from the Middle East in a moment, but we begin with the increased police effort to patrol neighborhoods in the GTA.
Charges have been laid after threats were made at a Hebrew school. Still, communities remain on edge heading into the weekend. CTV's Alison Hurst joins us now live with the details. Alison.
There's been a steady flow of residents coming by this police command post, dropping off food, saying thank you, and speaking with officers.
Police step up their presence amid an increased level of fear as the Israel-Gaza war rages on.
I appreciate their presence, but it's 2023 in Toronto, and it's frightening and terrifying that they even need to be here.
A command post is set up near Bathurst and Lawrence, with another at Bathurst and Glencairn, offering enhanced security.
The impact on the community is real, it's significant, and it cannot be overstated.
Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkew spoke with community members.
There still continues to be no credible threats to the community.
But parents still questioned sending their kids to school.
Our social media groups, we all were debating whether or not to send our kids to school today. I did.
My daughter is home today. But I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think everything is based on fear.
A threat yesterday at Tannenbaum Community Hebrew Academy resulted in the arrest of 3 people. A 20-year-old man and 2 teenaged boys, 17 and 14, are now facing 4 charges of uttering threats, intimidation by threats of violence, and mischief. Police were outside the school today.
It's not been a normal day. This week has not been a normal week. We're trying to continue with our studies.
Toronto police have also increased presence at all schools, synagogues, and mosques.
It gives a sense of security, right, for the community members. But I think this needs to also be contextualized and understand what's fueling the current uneasiness, right, and fear.
York Regional Police set up a command post in Thornhill.
We know from York Regional Police and others there's no credible threat, but it is completely understandable that people would be gravely concerned.
The Minister of Public Safety says he's in touch with senior leadership within the RCMP and CSIS.
They are working closely with their policing partners across the country, in provinces, in municipalities, in community groups, to ensure the safety of Jewish communities and institutions across our country.
The community is grateful, bringing baked goods and food to officers.
I feel seen, heard, and much better knowing that they have a physical presence here to show the community that they're out and they understand our concerns.
They're still a little bit scared in the heart because anything can happen.
With no end in sight to the fighting.
Mayor Del Duca says that command post in York Region is going to remain there until at least Monday, when they will reassess. Chief Demkew says these ones have no end date. They'll keep them up as long as needed. Reporting live, I'm Alison Hurst. Sarita, back to you.
Thank you, Alison. In the Middle East, there are calls for restraint as a ground assault in the Gaza Strip looms.
Today, Israel gave half of the territory's population 24 hours to leave. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
In northern Gaza, evacuation orders rain down on residents. Israel's military has told more than 1.1 million people living there to move south while they still can, or risk being caught up in an anticipated ground invasion. Hamas, however, is telling people to stay put.
Those who want to save their life, please go south. We are going to destroy Hamas infrastructures.
Israel says Hamas is hiding behind the people in Gaza. And as Israeli tanks gather near the border, widespread panic is spreading among civilians and aid workers in the Gaza Strip who have nowhere to go. Gaza's borders are sealed and electricity, water supplies and fuel have already been cut off.
This is ethnic cleansing. This is crime against humanity. This needs to be stopped.
The United Nations is pleading with Israel to back down.
The United Nations strongly appeals for any such order to be rescinded, avoiding what could transform what is already a tragedy into a calamitous situation.
More than 3,000 people on both sides have died since the war began 6 days ago, and as many as 150 people are believed to be held by Hamas as hostages in Gaza.
She's 84 years old and being held hostage. I mean, already it's 6 days, and That's not good.
Over the last 2 days, Canada has evacuated more than 500 people from Israel, with 2 more military flights scheduled to leave tomorrow. Plans are also in the works to get hundreds of Canadians out of the West Bank and Gaza, with Ottawa saying there is a potential window for civilian evacuation through Egypt's Rafah border with Gaza tomorrow afternoon.
Until we know for certain that that border is open and during those hours, and that we know who is approved to move across, there is a lot of uncertainty around this.
The CTV national correspondent Heather Wright joins us now from Tel Aviv. Heather, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister arrived in Tel Aviv for a visit to Israel and Jordan. What is she hoping to accomplish?
Well, she was here in Tel Aviv for a brief visit. She met with Canadians departing on some of those government planes and also spoke with her counterpart, who assured her that Israel would help facilitate any Canadian nationals trying to leave the Palestinian territories, being the West Bank and Gaza, specifically tomorrow, if that corridor with Egypt does open and if foreign nationals are allowed to cross. But as we mentioned in that clip, it is a lot of uncertainty surrounding what is going to happen with letting people cross tomorrow, with more than 1 million people trying to leave the north of Gaza before that presumed ground invasion gets going.
And what about humanitarian aid? Is that even possible, getting it in?
Well, and that is a big question. The United Nations has called for a humanitarian corridor to be open to get much needed supplies into Gaza. We know that they have been cut off from electricity, water, fuel is running out. And, you know, it's almost been a week since this war started, and things are getting very dire for millions of people who live in Gaza, many of whom are innocent civilians really caught in the crossfire of this war. But it doesn't seem as though something's going to happen imminently. We know that there are still resources coming in, but with this ground invasion likely to take place in the coming days, it remains to be seen how much aid is going to be able to get into Gaza, especially into the north, and how many people they are going to be able to get out.
Yeah, with that, how realistic is it to get so many people out in so short of time?
Well, I mean, think about it. Moving 1 million people out of a very dense place on a good day would be a challenge. But this is a place that has been under bombardment, under complete siege for the last 6 days. There is crumbling infrastructure. There are, half the population is under the age of 18, so there are a lot of children. There are injured people. And so really, it's a monumental feat to be able to do this. And it's likely impossible. And that is why the United Nations has called for a halt to this request, to slow things down a little bit, to be able to move people more safely and more efficiently out of those areas before any invasion begins.
All right, CTV national correspondent Heather Wright, thank you.
A Mississauga woman is praying her family members in the Gaza Strip, including a 3-year-old nephew, will be able to escape the destruction in the impending invasion.
And as CTV's John Woodward reports, there's a Canadian plane that could take them home, but they just can't get to it.
Watching the bombs fall on the Gaza Strip has been heartbreaking for Lana Nasser.
My family has evacuated 4 times in the past week, from one home to the other.
Many of the 23-year-old Mississauga residents' extended family members are stranded there, many of them Canadian citizens.
It's really scary. It's just really scary.
That includes her older brother, Mo Nasser, a Toronto-trained digital marketing specialist.
We're lucky if we get 1 to 2 hours of sleep a day, because the bombing does not stop.
CTV News reached Mo Nasser in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip, where electricity and cell service is scarce. Nasser recorded video of one bomb. He and his wife Maha fled after another reduced a building across the street to rubble. He can't comprehend how more than 1 million people here could follow the Israeli order to evacuate before an expected invasion without huge casualties.
The conditions there are terrible. There's no water, there's no food for people. People are sleeping on the ground in a warehouse.
The Canadian government has sent military aircraft to the Tel Aviv airport to evacuate Canadian citizens. Of the 2,200 citizens in the region, about 150 are in Gaza. The Nassers say they can't get to the airport because they can't travel through Israel.
Because of their nationality, because they're Palestinian, they are explicitly denied the ability to travel. Even in times of so-called peace, they are not allowed to travel through the Tel Aviv airport.
Some Canadian groups are calling on the Canadian government to arrange passage through neighboring Egypt and to publicly ask Israel to stop civilian deaths.
They really need to use their sway to demand that this collective punishment, which includes Canadians, stops. And of course, allowing for humanitarian aid to get in and for people to have the basics to survive.
It can't continue like this, or else we're all going to die.
Another problem, Nasser says he can't leave without his nephew Basil. Basil's father is Canadian, but the 3-year-old doesn't have a Canadian passport. His birthday was this week.
Celebrating your birthday in the middle of a war. So it's devastating.
The Nassers praying something will change and they can survive to be reunited in Canada. John Woodward, CTV News.
A Mississauga woman is praying her family members in the Gaza Strip, including a 3-year-old nephew, will be able to escape the destruction in the impending invasion.
We've got more details on that in a moment.
Also tonight, the local relief effort answering an urgent call for donations, the personal motivation to send vital supplies to the region. Let's give you a live look right now at the city tonight. It was a nice day today, but it could see a little bit of wet weather as we head into the weekend. Lindsay Morrison is here now with a look at our current conditions. I see some rain behind you. I don't know if it's headed our way, though.
Well, it could be, Zorai, depending on which part of the GTA you're joining us from. I'll step aside so you can see the fact that we have rain anywhere from Bayfield over toward Stratford and south toward the Brantford area. This is all part of a bigger low-pressure system. We call this a Colorado low because that's where it originated. And with it, we are expecting rain in some areas. Gusty winds. Right now, those winds are pretty light. They're coming out of the north at around 9 kilometers per hour. Temperature-wise, it's comfortable at this time, 11 degrees in Toronto. It was a really lovely day, and if you're hoping to head to a patio tonight, conditions are looking pretty good. It's late evening and overnight that we could get into some wet weather. We're going to take you through the weekend forecast coming up. Again, west end of the GTA, keep the umbrella handy. All of those details are ahead. Nathan, for now, I'll send it over to you.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. A massive effort is underway to help people affected by the Israel-Hamas war.
The United Jewish Appeal of Greater Toronto put out a call for donations, and the community answered in a very big way. CTV Sean Leithong is live at the Lipa Green Center in North York with the story. Sean.
Well, Zoraida and Nathan, it's been a day of action here. We've seen donations coming in from all across the city, and we've seen many people working together within this community to help their larger community in Israel. The sound of support. With a flurry of activity inside the Lipa Green Center, a mountain of supplies donated by Toronto's Jewish community are being sorted.
And right now we're packing those things so we can put them on a plane and get them to Israel.
And you don't have to go far to find those who have been directly affected.
My family's there. All of my friends are currently on reserve. They're all fighting.
23-year-old Noam Dembel is from Israel, recently finishing his military service. When asked if he knows anyone killed,
unfortunately, I do.
Sorting through the boxes, Kevin Rohr says he too has lost family.
A cousin who was 23 years old in a kibbutz in the south. And he was trying to help, his unit was trying to help free hostages that were being held in the kibbutz. And he was killed last week.
Days ago, the UJA put out a call for donations to help those displaced by the terror attacks.
Our partners on the ground in Israel has given us very specific instructions as to what is needed on the ground there.
Things like medical supplies, first aid kits, and clothing for those who have had to leave their homes. That call is being answered in large numbers. But as personal as this conflict is for so many people, they're not just donating goods, but also a staggering amount of money.
We've raised, as of right now, about $48 million since Sunday.
By late afternoon, that number was up to 50 million.
Super light.
Beyond the donations, there is a feeling of a need for action. Like these girls who can only speak Hebrew, writing cards for soldiers. Or just handing out water, a commonality here of a people wanting to help.
It's heartbreaking. And it makes me feel helpless, which is why I'm doing this. This is like right now all I can do.
It feels like you're contributing, doing something.
Supplies are being collected and expected to be in Israel next week. And you're seeing supplies being loaded onto a truck. It's been all day. Many of the people who have worked here worked all day yesterday as well. And then for that money that's come in, that staggering amount, $50 million, they say it's going to help those who have had to evacuate towns. They say some towns outside the Gaza Strip have doubled in size because of evacuations. They're also getting equipment for first responders and mental health support for those who have been affected by the attacks. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. In Tel Aviv, Israel's prime minister warned that the Israeli attacks on Hamas are just the beginning.
ולא ניתן לעולם או למישהו להשכיח את הזוועות האלה שלא נעשו לעם היהודי.
Benjamin Netanyahu delivered the threat in a nationally televised address today. He says the atrocities committed by the terrorist group will never be forgotten and it will be destroyed. Today, Israel said its soldiers have made some small raids into Gaza ahead of the expected invasion.
Elsewhere, there was shelling today during fighting between Israeli troops and Hezbollah along the Lebanon-Israel border. It's been the scene of sporadic acts of violence since Saturday's deadly attack by Hamas on southern Israel. Today, Reuters videographer Issam Abdallah was killed when an Israeli shell landed in a gathering of journalists. 6 others were injured. You can track the latest developments in the Israel-Hamas war on our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
2 other news tonight, and a move by City Council to extend a pilot project allowing drinking in Toronto parks.
It was launched in August and set to end in October, but will now continue through to March. CTV's John Musselman joins us from Trinity Bellwoods Park. John, what do people think about the idea of cracking a cold one there in the dead of winter?
Well, they seem to like it, Nathan. A lot of the people we talk to say this is a plan that should continue, and right now the city says it will. It's still in the testing phase, but City Council has approved a motion extending Toronto's Alcohol in Parks pilot project until March 31st.
I think it's a great idea.
The pilot, which began in August, allows people over 19 to consume a beer or other alcoholic drinks in 27 city parks. Today at Trinity Bellwoods Park, people we spoke to say they have no problem extending the pilot project.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, they comply with it and it's okay.
I think people should be just free to enjoy themselves.
I think it's totally fine because everybody used to do that anyway.
Most of the parks are located in downtown Toronto as well as North York, Etobicoke and Scarborough. The motion to extend was put forward by Toronto Danforth councillor Paula Fletcher. It passed by a vote of 17-3.
I believe it will be permanent. I'm not sure it'll be in every single park, but in these bigger parks that have a lot of picnic spaces and meeting spaces and baseball games and other things, I think, yes, that this is our destiny is set. We're going to be able to have a drink in a park when this is all done.
People are doing it anyway. I think prosecuting people for something that's essentially, victimless, there's not really an issue. No, people aren't causing problems.
I don't think it really made much of a difference. I didn't notice anything living in the neighborhood. I think people did it anyway, and I don't think it increased at all with the change to the rules.
Councillors John Burnside, Stephen Holliday, and Vincent Crisanti voted against the motion. The early numbers seem to suggest the pilot project has not led to a jump in complaints. A report from city staff indicates that there are 2 alcohol-related complaints in participating parks and 28 complaints were filed in non-participating parks. And the city says it will continue to gather data as it looks at this pilot project, and it will report back to council in the new year. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, John. Still ahead tonight, getting ready to pound the pavement. The Toronto Waterfront Marathon is back. The excitement for those taking part and the closures you need to know about.
Police closed several lanes of highway in Markham this morning after a truck collided with a bridge. OPP say a dump truck with its bin raised was traveling southbound on the 404 at about 1 a.m. That's when it struck the overpass on the 407. The driver was not injured. It's not clear if charges will be laid. There was damage to the truck and the bridge, but engineers have deemed the roadway structurally safe. All lanes were open again by 6:30 this morning.
Students at Etienne Brule Public School in Etobicoke got the day off after an overnight fire damaged a classroom. Toronto Fire Services said the blaze broke out on the 2nd floor and has since been put out. No one was in the building at the time and no injuries were reported. The cause is still under investigation.
An update now on a story we mentioned earlier in the week. Toronto police are searching for a suspect accused of leaving hateful graffiti on an East End mosque. Yesterday afternoon, officers were called to a mosque near Danforth and Donlands. They say the suspect left hateful writing on the building. The same man is now accused of painting hate symbols at a mosque there on Friday evening. That first alleged incident happened before Hamas's attack on Israel. Police say they didn't believe it was related to the conflict. They have asked anyone with information to get in touch.
The man charged with killing 4 members of a London Muslim family in a 2021 attack was back on the witness stand today.
Nathaniel Veltman has been testifying in his own defense in a Windsor courtroom, and we want to warn you, the details in this story are disturbing. CTV's Nick Paparella has more.
22-year-old Nathaniel Veltman told the jury that about 2 months before a London Muslim family was run over, he was addicted to the internet for up to 12 hours a day, saying, "I thought I had to return to my fundamental roots. I began behaving as a religious fanatic. I was consuming this content on these websites." He went on, "I became inflicted by demons. I became obsessed with pornography." He added, "I went to the hospital because I thought I may have damaged my brain." Veltman said to kick the unhealthy habits, he destroyed 8 cell phones, 3 laptops, and 2 TVs. "I consumed a lot of Alex Jones, a conspiracy theorist. I became extremely paranoid of the government spying on me." He said thoughts of suicide would enter his mind. "I was at the end of my rope. I was very disturbed." 2 days after his grandmother passed away, Veltman would be arrested and charged with 4 counts of terrorism-motivated first-degree murder and 1 count of terrorism-motivated attempted murder. He has pled not guilty. On June 6 of 2021, 5 members of the Afzal family were run over by a pickup truck as they walked along Hyde Park Road in West London. 4 died, with the lone survivor being a 9-year-old son. Earlier in the day, the jury heard that Veltman would consume alcohol, marijuana, and magic mushrooms to deal with his bouts of depression and suicidal thoughts. Veltman would continue to search the dark web on the internet, saying, "I was drawn to whatever was fringe or conspiracy related. I slowly began to anger and desensitize over time." His testimony resumes next week. Nick Paparella, CTV News.
The Supreme Court has ruled a federal law that assesses how major projects impact the environment is largely unconstitutional.
If you believe in fairness, common sense, and the sanctity of the Canadian Constitution, today is a great day.
Alberta's premier says the legislation has been responsible for the loss of tens of billions of dollars in investment and thousands of jobs across the country. Doug Ford also welcomed the ruling, saying the federal process needlessly duplicates Ontario's environmental assessment requirements. Natural resource projects like coal mines and oil sands plants mostly fall under provincial jurisdiction. The Trudeau government points out the law was not struck down, but says it will work to make it less broad.
In Hamilton, the federal NDP's kicked off a 3-day policy convention with a rousing speech from its leader.
We are the only party with the courage to say the reason why the cost of living has increased is because of corporate greed. And we've got to tackle that corporate greed.
Delegates are expected to focus on affordability issues. And Jagmeet Singh will face a mandatory leadership review, his first since the 2021 election. There will also be a debate about whether to withdraw from the confidence and supply deal unless the Liberals commit to a universal pharmacare program, and how the party should approach Israeli-Palestinian issues. Today's gathering began with a message calling for peace in the Middle East.
In Washington, Jim Jordan has won the Republican nomination to lead the U.S. House of Representatives. But after today's vote, the Ohio representative appears short of the support he would need to get the Speaker's gavel. GOP members are now headed home for the weekend, ensuring the House will remain without a leader until at least Monday. Republicans control the chamber by a narrow margin, so they can't afford to lose too many votes if Democrats oppose Jordan, as they are expected to do.
NASA's begun a 6-year journey to an asteroid made of metal.
3, 2, 1, engine ignition. And liftoff.
A rocket lifted off from Florida's Kennedy Space Center this morning. It will chase an asteroid scientists believe is the remains of an early planet's iron core. They hope it can shed light on the inaccessible centers of Earth and other rocky planets. The large space rock orbits the sun in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter.
Back here at home, runners will take over some major streets of the city this weekend.
The Toronto Waterfront Marathon is back, and so too are the closures, meaning getting around in a vehicle could prove challenging. CTV's Mike Walker joins us live with more on what you need to know. Mike.
Well, Nathan Zoraida, we're at Bay and Queen. This is the finish line for the 42-kilometer long course, and that means there will be several road closures and bus detours in the downtown and along the waterfront. This afternoon, we've been speaking with some participants who are eager to pound the pavement in the event that benefits more than 100 charities. Thousands of runners from around the world will lace up Sunday and pound the pavement at the TCS Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
I like big city races, the energy, the crowds.
It brings, community together.
It will be Sean Avery's 11th event, and it's not just about a personal best. He's raising money for the Asperger's Society of Ontario.
Cause is really important for me because we're a small charity. We don't get a lot of government funding, actually.
More than 150 charities are supported by the event as part of the Charity Challenge.
For this one, it's really just it's me against me and just trying to really enjoy the day.
It's the 13th marathon for Brandon Throop. The avid runner is a cancer survivor who was looking to set a Guinness World Record while raising money for Princess Margaret Hospital.
Fastest marathon dressed as a hospital patient. Tried to run a couple times in the gown. It looks a little bit suspicious on Lakeshore, though, running around a hospital gown, so don't do that too often.
The event features a full and half marathon plus a 5-kilometer race.
A sold-out crowd of 25,000 people from 78 countries.
And that means there are dozens of road closures throughout the course starting at 7 a.m. Saturday. Several TTC surface routes are also being diverted. The marathon starts near University and Queen and zigzags through the downtown. Runners will race along the lakeshore before crossing the finish line at Bay and Queen.
Find some solution somewhere to find out some other back route or something. Otherwise, that it's very terrible.
But we can walk around and enjoy it, right?
There are more than 20 designated cheering sections along the course, the event aiming to raise more than $3 million.
I know the first couple of miles it's going to be painful, but in the end, it's all worth it.
Organizers say the economic impact for the city is $30 million. Now, the event has raised more than $50 million to date for numerous charities. As for the road closures, all of those roads are expected to be reopened by 9 Sunday night. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Zoraida, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Just ahead, as Taylor Swift's Eras Tour concert film gets set to break the box office this weekend, a warning for fans hoping to go to an actual concert about a ticket scam making the rounds.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up, it's Feedback Friday. More viewers tell us they're losing money to bank scams and not having the funds returned. Why you need to be extra careful. And there are more complaints about overcharging for garage door repairs. I'll have my reports. That's just ahead.
So how much wet weather you get tomorrow really depends on which part of the GTA you're in. But go ahead and plan the trip to the farm or the pumpkin patch. Just be prepared for showers, especially in the West GTA. Sunday morning conditions look pretty good for that Toronto Waterfront Marathon. And we're looking at a little bit of a warm-up through our long-range forecast. We'll talk all about it coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
We've done many stories recently about bank scams involving fraudulent e-transfers, copied checks, and fake links in text messages.
Banks are much more reluctant to reimburse money lost by fraud if they feel the customer is to blame. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Zoraida, we get complaints almost every day from people who say they've had money stolen from their bank accounts. If you're not at fault, you'll get your money back. But more viewers say their losses are not being covered, and they feel they should be. Andre Perot, who was waiting for a lung transplant, was shocked to see almost $4,000 had been drained from her bank account. Her bank investigated and said someone must have had access to her bank card and her email address to steal the money and refused to give it back.
$4,000 is a lot of money for me.
Michael wrote, I had $10,000 taken out of my account. The bank was no help and closed my case. This is extremely frustrating. Elisha Manella was expecting money to help pay her tuition, so when she got a text that said it was from her bank, she thought it was the real thing. It was a scam, and she lost $3,000.
I didn't think I'd be one of those people that would fall victim.
With CTV's help, she had the money returned, but we also heard from many others who were scammed this way. Elizabeth told us, I also clicked on a fake link and lost $3,000. The bank says it's my fault and refused to reimburse me the funds. Marie Nelson says when her garage door opener quit working, she went online and searched garage door opener repair. A company quoted her $300, but a contractor replaced the garage door opener with a new one and told her to pay a much higher amount on the spot.
He charged me $3,000, and I was totally shocked.
The company she hired was Lux Service, and their website, luxgaragedoors.ca, said they were located in Vaughan. The website has now been taken down. Karen told us, we had the exact issue with this company. We were told it was $300 and were charged $3,000. I called to complain, but no one ever called back. Police in Guelph are warning about ticket scams involving Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Fraudsters are claiming to have tickets for resale for her 6 shows in Toronto next year. Fake tickets are posted on social media sites, and once someone sends an e-transfer to pay for them, they're blocked and the tickets never arrive. And Toronto police have had more than a dozen cases of fraud involving Taylor Swift tickets, with losses totaling more than $10,000. They advise not to buy tickets using social media unless you personally know the seller. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, to the forecast. I guess most of us by now embracing this fall weather, getting used to it. You know, we had a nice stretch of warm weather, but now we're kind of deep into it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. You know, when it's a nice fall day with the sunshine out, it's actually quite nice. Although I don't know if we're going to see much of that this weekend.
Well, we might. You know, in the end, this weekend's not looking quite as unsettled as it was a couple of days ago. We've got our first Colorado low of the season moving in, and typically that would mean heavy amounts of rain, very strong winds, and cool temperatures. But depending on where you're joining us from, you might get some of that, but other parts of the GTA are going to escape the rain entirely. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. The leading edge of that system has arrived in southern Ontario. As you can see, it is trying to extend into the GTHA. So Hamilton, you're right on the cusp here. It is a big low pressure system. It looks as though it's headed our way and that it's going to impact a widespread area of southern Ontario, which it is, but mainly southwestern Ontario. For the most part, this low tracks to the south and misses most of us in the GTA, but it's not going to miss everyone. If you're joining us from Toronto over toward Hamilton and around the Niagara Peninsula, you can expect to experience a few showers through these overnight hours tonight. Then tomorrow there's going to be a little bit of lake enhancement, so a few lake effect showers for that west end of Lake Ontario as well. But notice north of Toronto and east, not only is it drier, but some of that cloud cover could break up and there will be sun in the afternoon. Over toward Windsor and London, you can expect it to be pretty unsettled as well. This is all going to move out as we make our way into Saturday evening. Here's the thing though, for Sunday, some lake effect showers off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay could develop. Slight chance of a shower for us here in Toronto, but for the most part, the wet weather is going to stay to our north and to our west. A little windy tomorrow, especially down near Windsor, gusts upwards of 50 kilometers per hour. We could experience anywhere from 20 to 40 wind gusts. Temperature-wise right now, it's not bad in Toronto, 11 degrees. We're really not going to cool down all that much overnight tonight. 9 is our forecast low. That's warmer than it was last night. No frost advisories in place for tonight. Waking up tomorrow, this is when we have perhaps our best chance of some wet weather in the Toronto area. But again, improvements as we make our way into the afternoon. Tomorrow's forecast daytime high is 13 degrees. It's a little bit cooler than we've been the last day or so, but still near seasonal. We're at around 12 degrees for Sunday, 11 for Monday. Keep the umbrella handy that day. But brighter skies return through the middle of next week. And we're in for a little bit of a warm up in the long range. Temperatures back in the upper teens. That's your look at the forecast for now. Zoraida, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. The roar of motorcycles returned to Port Dover today as the town continued its tradition of celebrating each Friday the 13th. The only other Friday the 13th this year was in January, and while cold weather meant fewer attendees back then, an estimated 50,000 people took part in today's festivities by afternoon. Port Dover's mayor says the event is also a major boost for local vendors.
No more dancing in the dark. Bruce Springsteen sheds light on new Canadian tour dates after shows were postponed because of his health. The details coming up. It was a gruesome crime. A young Canadian mother strangled to death in her California home in 1981.
Despite intense police efforts, Sonia Herrick, Stone's killer, roamed free for decades. W5's Avery Haynes on the cold case and how fresh eyes have given old evidence new life.
Hey boss, how's it going? Mr. Glazebrook, right? Hey, I'm Detective Wilson in the Sheriff's Office. Can you turn your car off?
This is a police audio recording obtained exclusively by W5.
I picked up the case of Sonia Stone, the cold case homicide that we've been working forever.
Detective Eris Wilson of the Monterey Sheriff's Department approaches Michael Glazebrook, the man long suspected of being the killer of Canadian Sonia Herrick Stone.
So I have a search warrant for your DNA. You have time for me to check with my lawyer? No.
Sonia was strangled to death in 1981, and Glazebrook, who lived across the street, was the prime suspect almost right away.
He's got this deep red scratch running from just under his eye, as I'm describing it, running down his right cheek.
The cut on his face, along with a confession he was at her house the day of the murder, led to a first-degree murder charge. But his trial ended with a hung jury, and he was set free. Using advancements in DNA, the case has now been reopened.
You just put it on the inside of your cheek and just rub it up and down.
The DNA collected that day was tested against the blood under Sonia's fingernail.
The chance that you could go out randomly into the population and pick somebody and have that person's profile match the profile underneath the fingernails was like 1 in 46 quadrillion.
Michael Glazebrook has been found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. Avery Haynes, CTV News, Toronto.
And to find out why Sonia's ex-husband lived under a cloud of suspicion for the crime and who the real killer was, watch W5 at a new time tonight at 10.
The head of the Hollywood Actors Union is slamming studios and streaming services for calling off talks to resolve their ongoing strike.
It's so wrong, and it's so unfair that they walked out of the meeting and so disrespectful. They talk at you. They really don't want to hear what you have to say or why you're saying it.
The alliance representing studios and streamers said conversations were, quote, no longer moving in a productive direction. The key sticking point between the two sides appears to be a demand from SAG-AFTRA for actors to receive a portion of streaming revenues. The union called off picket lines in New York and Los Angeles today amid security concerns.
Britney Spears' long-awaited memoir is out later this month, and reports say a fellow star will help the singer tell her story. People magazine reports Oscar nominee Michelle Williams will narrate the audiobook version of The Woman in Me. Spears herself is expected to record the audiobook's introduction. Spears told People she was grateful for Williams' involvement. Williams shared a short statement saying simply, "I stand with Britney."
Bruce Springsteen has set new dates for his Canadian concerts after postponing several shows for medical reasons.
Thinking about you.
The Boss was originally supposed to play in Toronto and several other Canadian cities in November, but he called those performances off as he recovers from peptic ulcer disease. The rescheduled shows will now take place in November of 2024. Tickets for the original shows will still be honored.
As a hit musical based on Alanis Morissette's music makes its way to Toronto, Mirvish Productions is launching an online singing competition.
And I'm here to remind you.
That is Jagged Little Pill cast member Jade McLeod with a special rendition of Morissette's You Oughta Know, as heard in the show. Mirvish is encouraging TikTok users to duet the video and tag them. One lucky winner will receive a pair of tickets to opening night at the Princess of Wales Theatre, October 26th.
Taylor Swift is used to selling out concert arenas, but this weekend she is set to do the same thing at cinemas across the globe.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
Swift's Eras Tour concert film was supposed to debut today, but it hit theaters a day early. Box office insiders tell Deadline the movie could bring in $107 to $130 million U.S. this weekend across North America. Here in Canada, Cineplex says the Eras Tour generated a record $6.2 million in pre-sales.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
Best Buy is hitting the eject button on DVDs for good. The retailer, once a leader in the market, planning to ditch the digital discs by early next year.
I appreciate their presence, but it's 2023 in Toronto, and it's frightening and terrifying that they even need to be here.
Updating our top stories as the Israel-Hamas war rapidly escalates, plans to get hundreds of Canadians out of the region continue. Meanwhile, in an effort to promote safety, police across the GTA are ramping up patrols around mosques, synagogues, and other places of worship.
I think it's a great idea.
I think people should be just free to enjoy themselves.
Toronto will continue to allow drinking in 27 parks, with City Council approving a motion to expand the city's pilot program. The project was launched in August and set to end in October, but now it'll continue until March.
I like big city races, the energy, the crowds.
It brings, community together.
And runners will lace up their shoes to take over some major streets Sunday as part of Toronto's Waterfront Marathon. There will be a number of road closures in effect starting at 7 Saturday morning, including Bay Street from Dundas Street West to Queen and both the on and off ramps of the Gardiner. They're all set to reopen Sunday at 9 p.m.
And remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar traded up 17 points to 73.21 U.S. American benchmark oil gained $4.55 to reach 86.35 a barrel, and the TSX Composite Index lost 37 points to close at 19,462.86.
And as more people get their entertainment from streaming services, it's apparently the end of an era at Best Buy. The retailer confirming to Variety today that it is ending sales of DVD and Blu-ray discs, both in-store and online, early next year. We've asked Best Buy Canada if that will also be the case at their locations in this country. This comes after Netflix halted its DVD delivery rental service in September.
Microsoft has completed its purchase of video game company Activision Blizzard, a move that could have repercussions across the industry.
There's a bright golden haze on the meadow.
Microsoft wasted no time closing the $69 billion U.S. deal after UK regulators gave the okay. It now owns the studios behind blockbuster games like Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Candy Crush. Microsoft has denied concerns from critics who say the deal could stifle competition.
With Line 3 permanently closed, Metrolinx is sharing an update on its eventual replacement, the Scarborough subway extension. The transit agency posting this time-lapse video of ongoing tunneling work underground. The extension from Kennedy Station to Shepherd and McCowan will bring the TTC's Line 2 nearly 8 kilometers further into Scarborough.
And if you're planning to take GO Transit this weekend, there'll be some service changes to accommodate infrastructure work. Starting at 10 tonight, trains will stop running on the Lakeshore East Line until Monday morning. Shuttle buses will run to stations outside the TTC service area, with full service not resuming until Tuesday. From tomorrow through Monday, Stouffville Line trains will only run as far south as Kennedy, where riders can transfer to the TTC.
There's also a major closure this weekend in the Riverdale area. Dundas Street East will be closed to traffic between Broadview and Logan Avenue from 11 tonight to 4 on Monday morning. This is for Metrolinx work on the Ontario line. Local traffic and pedestrians will be able to access the area, but other motorists will have to detour south and take Queen Street.
Preparing for the Ring of Fire, a partial solar eclipse will cast over the sky this weekend. What stargazers need to know and the warning from astronomers, that's coming up.
Tonight, inside the trauma at one of the largest hospitals in the Middle East.
I managed to see my sister's agony.
The angst as families in Israel wait for word on critically injured loved ones. That's later on CTV National News.
The so-called Ring of Fire is set to take center stage tomorrow.
And some Canadians will be able to take in the show, weather permitting. The annual solar eclipse may be visible over western British Columbia, but the forecast is calling for clouds and rain. The rare phenomenon occurs when the moon passes in front of the sun, creating a circle of light with darkness in the middle. The next solar eclipse in central Canada is set for April 8th. And what about here in Ontario? Hopefully we can get a chance to see it a little bit, no?
It looks like we're going to have a fair amount of cloud as well. Even if we do manage to stay dry, I think the cloud will interfere with that display, unfortunately. Here's one more look at the satellite and radar, where the wet weather is starting to make its way across southwestern Ontario, creeping closer to portions of the West GTA. But again, many areas are going to remain dry when it comes to this system. Here's your weekend forecast. So Saturday, yes, potential for some wet weather, especially Toronto and West. Sunday, not bad, 12 degrees, mostly cloudy, a chance of a lake effect rain shower. Hey, if you're hoping to check out the fall colors this weekend, they're starting to peak in many areas, especially north of the city. Here is the 7-day forecast. Looks like we're in for a little bit of a warm up through to the end of next week. Nathan and Zoraida.
Thank you, Lindsay. And be sure to join John Vanna Valley Rao tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching. Have a good night, and we'll see you at 11:30.
Good night.
Night.